I think he'll change. He is committed of his own level of service, and that will remain.
Few institutions on earth have mastered the art of complete silence like the British royal family. Total, unbreakable, airtight silence. Never complain, never explain, isn't just a motto. It's a survival code, a rule drilled into generations of royals, whispered behind palace walls, passed from parent to child, repeated like a mantra that has preserved centuries of tradition. Every member learns it early. Loyalty, discretion, and above all, invisibility. But what happens when that armor cracks, and the breach comes from inside the family itself? Just days ago, sources close to Buckingham Palace claimed that Princess Anne finally broke her silence, not for cameras, not for headlines, but behind the closed doors of the inner circle. And insiders say her words hit with devastating precision. The dossier exists, and we tried to tell him. 11 words that reportedly left Prince Harry in tears inside his Montecito mansion. Think about it. If even part of this is true, every assumption he had about his life, his marriage, and his family's so-called betrayals suddenly flips upside down. Today, we're diving into what insiders are quietly calling the most consequential intelligence failure in modern royal history, one that could have reshaped not just a family, but a monarchy. What you're about to hear challenges every version of Harry and Meghan's story the media has fed you. This isn't about whether Harry made a mistake. The real question is, did Princess Anne see a disaster coming, and did Harry ignore it? Don't look away, because the consequences of this moment reverberate far beyond Hollywood glamour or fairy tale narratives. Let's rewind to autumn 2016. London streets painted gold with falling leaves, Prince Harry falling hard in love, and the palace quietly shifting into protocol mode. Level 3 security vetting. Normally it's routine. A check for debts, criminal records, embarrassing associations, bureaucratic, standard, invisible to the public. But with Meghan Markle, insiders say the process revealed something that made alarm bells echo not just in palace security, but deep into British intelligence itself. Think about it. What could a television actress have in her past to raise red flags at that level? According to palace sources, the vetting revealed a glaring contradiction no PR spin could smooth over. Publicly, between 2008 and 2012, Meghan marketed herself as a struggling actress, barely surviving Hollywood auditions, landing minor roles, the underdog story she would eventually frame as rags to royalty. But confidential intelligence allegedly told a different story. The woman publicly struggling for work was reportedly spotted on Mediterranean super yachts worth tens of millions, attending private gatherings where a single night costs more than most people make in a decade. She moved through closed elite circles, Gulf royals, Middle Eastern power brokers, European billionaires. Not a single appearance could be explained by income listed on any public record. Princess Anne, known for her no-nonsense attitude and decades of deep ties to palace security, was allegedly among the first royals to see the file. Sources say she reviewed timelines, travel logs, financial records, and then asked the question Harry never did. Who paid for all this? Because in elite global circles, struggling actresses don't casually float through rooms where billions are being moved, deals are being brokered, and access costs more than an average person earns in a lifetime. Someone funded the travel, someone facilitated the access, someone opened doors. And in intelligence terms, unexplained wealth or influence is the single biggest red flag for a security compromise. Anne allegedly understood what Harry couldn't. This wasn't luck. These weren't random parties. This was structured cultivation, deliberate social placement over multiple years. Analysts would see repeated appearances in the same elite environments, despite no apparent means, and start asking uncomfortable questions. Who's backing this? What obligations exist? What is being exchanged for this access? Sources say palace security meticulously cross-referenced travel records, finances, and photographic evidence, mapping social networks to reveal patterns stretching from California to Monaco, the Mediterranean to the Middle East. Funding sources didn't appear on any tax return. Invisible, but deliberate. Intelligence officers reportedly flagged the situation as one requiring immediate attention. And then came the confrontation, a private meeting that insiders say permanently fractured the relationship between aunt and nephew. Harry would later frame it as proof of his family's cruelty, but according to those close to Anne, it was her final, desperate attempt to protect him. Imagine holding classified intelligence, watching your nephew madly in love, planning a wedding broadcast to billions, while knowing something he can't yet see. She didn't lecture him on race, class, or royal protocol. She reportedly focused on national security. She laid the Saudi dossier before him and explained strategic social placement, a term crucial in elite power circles. Attractive, intelligent, socially adept individuals can be deliberately positioned near high-value targets, not through clumsy spycraft, but via sophisticated social engineering, invitations, introductions, access, carefully curated and purposeful. Anne allegedly told Harry bluntly, the photos and travel records showed a woman not stumbling into these elite spaces by chance. She was savvy, aware of hierarchy, fluent in navigating rooms of the world's most powerful, most dangerous figures. Her warning, insiders say, was chilling. She hasn't just been dating you, Harry. She's been kept. And people don't keep you in these circles unless you're useful. Blinded by destiny and loyalty, Harry allegedly refused to see it. He framed the dossier as prejudice, as an insult, evidence of family bias rather than protection. He ignored receipts, buried the report, and stepped directly into what Anne had identified as a trap. The tragedy cannot be overstated. Princess Anne wasn't acting from snobbery or prejudice. She was acting on experience, decades of royal service, seeing countless individuals attempt to infiltrate the monarchy for influence or gain, had honed her instincts. Every line in that dossier triggered them. Impossible lifestyle, Gulf connections, repeated high-value placements, curated public persona versus private reality. These weren't signs of romance. They were signs of a systematic operation, and the math doesn't lie. Between 2008 and 2012, Meghan Markle's official resume reflected minor acting gigs, TV cameos, and short-term projects. She wasn't a star. She wasn't breaking Hollywood. She was hustling for auditions, worrying about rent, and taking whatever work she could find, the daily grind of a working-class actor in Los Angeles. But the dossier allegedly revealed a parallel reality. A woman moving through elite international circles with funding, access, and influence invisible on public records. A reality that Harry didn't want to see, but that Princess Anne reportedly did. And that's where the stakes become personal, national, and historic. A private warning ignored that could ripple across the monarchy for decades. And that's where the story stands, the impossible math. The documented lifestyle versus the public narrative. The carefully curated appearances versus private evidence, the royal warning ignored. Everything converges on one point. While romance may be beautiful, finances, and the power behind them, do not lie. Between 2008 and 2012, Meghan Markle's official resume lists minor acting roles, brief television appearances, and short-term gigs. She was not an Alistair. She wasn't even a Blister. She was a working-class actor in Los Angeles, hustling for auditions, worrying about rent, taking whatever work she could get. Her most visible job during that entire stretch wasn't a breakout role, a lead part, or even a steady television arc. It was holding a briefcase on Deal or No Deal. That's it. According to industry figures at the time, the reported pay sat around $800 per episode, before taxes, before agents, before managers. That's not elite money. That's survival money in Los Angeles. Now let's flip the ledger and look at the other side of the equation, because this is where the story stops being emotional and starts being mathematical. Newly leaked photographs allegedly place her aboard yachts valued in the tens of millions of dollars, not rentals, not public tours, but private vessels operating inside invitation-only Mediterranean circuits. These weren't casual getaways. They were elite gatherings in Monaco, the French Riviera, and offshore hubs where the guest lists allegedly included Saudi princes, Russian oligarchs, international financiers, and politically connected power players. These are environments where the champagne alone costs more than most people's monthly rent, events where access is controlled, names are vetted, and nobody just wanders in. And this is where even Hollywood insiders quietly admit something doesn't add up. Because cable television roles don't fund Monaco summers. Holding a briefcase doesn't bankroll Mediterranean yacht seasons. A struggling actor's income does not cover first-class international flights, designer wardrobes, five-star accommodations, and repeated access to the most exclusive social spaces on Earth. Let's slow this down and break the math apart, because numbers don't care about narratives. A first-class flight from Los Angeles to Monaco in 2010 would have cost anywhere between $8,000 and $12,000, depending on season and routing. Hotels in Monaco during Grand Prix week, the yacht show, or peak summer season, minimum $1,000 per night, and often far more. And that's just the bed. Now layer in the wardrobe. Designer evening wear appropriate for those events doesn't come cheap. Industry estimates put those outfits anywhere between $5,000 and $20,000 per look, depending on label and tailoring. Add hair, makeup, accessories, styling, and we're talking several thousand more. By conservative estimates, a single week in Monaco could easily cross $50,000, and the photographs allegedly show this wasn't a one-time experience. It was a pattern. Multiple years, multiple locations, same level of luxury. And here's where intelligence analysts allegedly zeroed in, because repeated high-cost appearances without corresponding financial withdrawals raise immediate red flags. According to sources familiar with the review, bank records didn't show large expenses matching these trips. There were no credit card statements reflecting luxury hotels, no personal receipts for couture wardrobes, which means someone else was paying, someone else was booking, someone else was ensuring she had everything required to look the part and move seamlessly through these elite environments. This is where Princess Anne's reported warning to Harry becomes crucial. As she allegedly told him, power does not give without expecting something back. In elite Gulf and oligarch circles, relationships are not casual. They follow patterns. Access becomes currency. Beauty becomes leverage. Discretion becomes the entry fee. And once you understand that structure, the story stops being about romance and starts being about transactions. Intelligence assessments reportedly concluded that this wasn't luck or opportunism. The photographs span years, not months. This wasn't a favor. It was support. It wasn't coincidence. It was cultivation. It wasn't opportunity. It was investment. And investments always come with expectations. Financial forensics allegedly deepened those concerns. Analysts saw no evidence she personally financed these movements. In intelligence terms, that condition has a name: being handled. When someone else manages your travel, covers your expenses, curates your access, and ensures your presentation, it signals a power imbalance. You don't pay because you can't. Someone with resources handles logistics, protection, and placement. And in return, you provide something they value. That value doesn't have to be criminal. Sometimes it's presence, sometimes it's proximity, sometimes it's introductions, credibility, or access to other people. But the exchange exists. And that's the terrifying question Princess Anne reportedly put directly to Harry. What was the return on that investment supposed to be? And that's where one name kept appearing in the files: Marcus Anderson. If the yachts were the stage, insiders claim Marcus wasn't just standing nearby. He was allegedly directing traffic. For years, the media framed him as nothing more than Meghan's close friend, a smooth operator within the Soho House empire, a loyal confidant with industry ties. But according to palace vetting sources, his role was assessed very differently behind closed doors. Princess Anne reportedly did not view him as a casual companion. But as a handler, that's a loaded word in intelligence circles, and it's not used lightly. So why would analysts apply it here? Let's look at his position. Marcus Anderson served as Global Membership Director for Soho House, a private club network built on exclusivity. These venues are not restaurants or hotels. They are curated access points where celebrities, financiers, political figures, and foreign elites intersect quietly. His real power wasn't hospitality, it was connections. He knew who mattered, who wanted access, and who could be introduced to whom. And then came 2015, the year before Meghan met Harry. Anderson reportedly orchestrated a pivotal event, the grand opening of Soho House Istanbul. That location matters more than people realise. Istanbul sits at the crossroads of East and West, a global meeting ground where European capital meets Middle Eastern wealth. It's a city where influence moves quietly and deals are done far from public records. According to intelligence-linked sources, this wasn't just a party. It was a marketplace, a curated environment where talent was positioned near capital, where ambitious individuals were introduced to wealthy patrons capable of opening doors across borders. The Dossier allegedly flagged this event as a critical networking moment, one that connected Meghan to the same Gulf-linked circles later appearing in those yacht photographs. The timing is what makes it impossible to ignore. Istanbul happened in 2015, just months before her introduction to Prince Harry. By that stage, insiders claim she would have been fully fluent in elite social navigation. She would have known expectations, boundaries, and how to move without leaving fingerprints. Istanbul wasn't the beginning. It was the culmination. A graduation point, signalling readiness for higher-profile connections. And then comes the detail that locks everything into place. Harry and Meghan's first meeting in London in 2016 was reportedly arranged by a mutual friend. That friend? Marcus Anderson. Which brings us to the fallout. The palace in crisis. According to multiple sources, the immediate aftermath of Princess Anne's alleged disclosure triggered what insiders described as controlled chaos. Emergency meetings, rapid consultations, legal advisors pulled in immediately. Buckingham Palace issued a carefully worded statement calling Anne's claims categorically false. But notice what they did not do. They didn't threaten lawsuits. They didn't attack her mental state. They didn't label her unreliable. Why? Because Princess Anne is not a fringe figure. She's the Princess Royal, a senior working royal with over 5 decades of service. She's completed more engagements than nearly anyone else in the family. You don't casually dismiss her credibility behind closed doors. And then there's the legal complexity. If confidential operational details were discussed internally, what laws apply, what agreements exist? Palace lawyers are reportedly walking a razor's edge because legal action against a senior royal opens doors no one wants opened. Meghan's team responded aggressively, labelling the claims fantasy and attention-seeking. But again, pay attention to strategy. They attacked Anne's motives, not the specifics. They questioned intent, not timelines. That distinction matters. And then came Andrew's lawyers, releasing a statement, saying Anne's characterization was misleading and taken out of context. That phrase is critical. Taken out of context doesn't deny interaction, it reframes it. It suggests something occurred, but that interpretation is disputed. Behind the scenes, sources say King Charles immediately convened emergency meetings with senior courtiers and legal advisors. The questions weren't just public, they were existential. What does Anne actually have? How much documentation exists? How do you contain a story in the age of social media and non-stop global news? Traditional palace containment strategies weren't working. The story was already spreading internationally. And until the full scope of Anne's evidence was understood, insiders say the palace couldn't craft a unified response. What do we do about Andrew? What do we do about Meghan? Both have issued denials. Carefully worded, legally cautious, strategically vague. Legal proceedings were already underway, but this wasn't any ordinary royal matter. Just 72 hours after King Charles's private announcement, the Royal Legal Council reportedly convened an emergency session, tasked with an unprecedented challenge, dismantling a monarch's marriage while maintaining the fragile stability of a centuries-old institution. Think about that. Rewriting the rules of royal marriage in real time, in the glare of international attention, while keeping constitutional norms intact. The legal teams faced a monumental task. Titles, housing arrangements, access to royal funds, public duties, and even succession implications. This wasn't just divorce court, it was constitutional chess on a scale never seen in modern times. The terms being drafted were reportedly labyrinthine, a tangle of rights and restrictions designed to ensure the monarchy remained functional despite the upheaval. Leading the effort was Sir Gavin Morland, widely recognised as one of Britain's most formidable constitutional lawyers, and insiders describe his involvement as both critical and highly meticulous. The current draft, sources say, would allow Camilla to retain the title Queen Consort Emerita, a ceremonial name that sounds imposing but carries zero political weight or succession rights. Essentially, she would live as a private citizen, no longer functioning as a member of the ruling monarchy. Most consequential, perhaps, the travel funding and staff support currently provided through the sovereign grant would cease within 90 days of the finalised separation. In practice, Camilla would lose nearly every material benefit of being Queen Consort, leaving her status ceremonial without the perks that once defined her role. Palace sources emphasise this is a constitutional puzzle with no precedent. According to insiders, it's the first time since the Royal Marriages Act of 1772 that legal advisers have interpreted divorce proceedings for a reigning sovereign. Every clause, every word, every sentence is being dissected to prevent future loopholes. And yet, there's another layer to the negotiations: deep-seated mistrust. Palace lawyers are reportedly drafting a strict non-disclosure provision, barring Camilla from publishing or contributing to any media, books, or films referencing the royal family without prior approval. This is about controlling the narrative, preventing historical interpretation from being skewed, and limiting any future disruption to the monarchy's image. Meanwhile, outside the palace walls, the world erupted. Public reaction was instantaneous, and social media amplified every rumour, every leak, and every speculation. Diana's memory, too, came roaring back into public consciousness, a reminder that the monarchy's private turmoil has always become global spectacle. King Charles, sources suggest, requested the proceedings conclude before the royal tour season in March, a move designed to reset the monarchy's public face without the constant distraction of personal scandal. Insiders describe it as not just a legal untangling, but the final chapter of a saga that began quietly over 50 years ago. A title without power, a name without meaning. Financial arrangements were equally consequential. Camilla would reportedly lose access to the Duchy of Cornwall funds, the estate that provides vast income to the royal family. She would be removed from Crown Estate privileges, effectively cutting off the financial infrastructure that supported her royal lifestyle. Housing was also fixed. Ray Mill House would be her permanent residence, a private home, not an official royal estate. Legal sources indicate breaches could trigger penalties up to £5 million, a clause reportedly insisted upon by Prince William himself. One source close to his team remarked, "No more shaping history to suit her agenda." Throughout this process, King Charles is said to have been present at briefings, though emotionally fragile. The dual pressures of duty and personal devastation reportedly left him divided, even as the legal machinery moved forward at full speed. Then came Prince William's announcement, a moment insiders say changed everything. The day began like any other in Kensington Palace, until 7:48 a.m, when the palace released a statement through official channels. But this was no typical release. It wasn't issued by an office, a spokesperson, or a committee. It came directly from Prince William himself. That detail alone shocked palace observers. Unlike standard announcements, this was personal, deliberate, and authoritative. In the statement, Prince William declared the complete and permanent end to any future relationship between the Crown and the Duchess of Sussex. There was no room for reinterpretation, no opportunity for reconciliation, and no language suggesting review. The door was closed, fully and decisively. Analysts describe the move as administrative in tone, but revolutionary in context. A clear, unmistakable message had been sent. Once the announcement hit, the media frenzy escalated instantly. The BBC reported first, Sky News followed, ITV interrupted morning programming in the US, and CNN pushed an alert banner by 8 a.m. The story displaced financial updates, weather segments, and entertainment news across global networks. Veteran royal reporters like Nicholas Witchell described it as unprecedented, a moment in their careers they had never witnessed before. International coverage was lightning fast. Reuters issued a breaking bulletin within 4 minutes in France, while media outlets across Europe, Asia, and North America scrambled to update. Social media amplified the impact exponentially. CrowdTangle reported over 1 million interactions within the first 10 minutes. Within 8 minutes, the topic reached #1 worldwide. But it wasn't just the scale, it was the timing that mattered. The 7:48 a.m. release ensured the announcement hit breakfast television in Britain, afternoon newsrooms in Asia, and late-night desks in North America simultaneously. There was no soft rollout, no quiet window, only immediate, synchronized global attention. Analysts note the financial markets remained mostly stable, but trading spikes occurred in British media companies tied to public sentiment. Public reaction was sharply divided. YouGov Snap polling indicated older citizens largely welcomed the decision as overdue, necessary, and stabilizing for the monarchy. Younger demographics, however, reportedly expressed frustration with the finality of William's decree. Commentators began discussing implications for future coronations, charitable patronages, and media strategy, yet William himself remained silent beyond the formal statement. No emotional appeals, no references to past interviews or allegations. Silence itself became part of the message, deliberate, controlled, and unmistakable. Royal historians note that William's actions, while personal, were not entirely without precedent. After Charles and Diana's divorce in 1996, communication around titles and public duties was managed via government channels rather than personal declarations. But the unprecedented element here was a future king personally authoring a declaration of this magnitude. Embassies reportedly reached out for clarifications, Commonwealth governors received briefings, and Kensington Palace switchboards logged thousands of calls in hours, confirming the global reach of William's words. By the first hints of dawn, journalists were already in position, cameras primed, notebooks ready, and satellite trucks parked strategically across Gatcombe Park. Rumours had been circulating for days. Whispers passed along quietly by palace insiders that something monumental was coming, though nobody, not even the most seasoned royal correspondents, could have predicted the scale. One palace staffer reportedly described it as a rupture of historic proportions, not merely within a family, but within the very core of British society itself. A fissure that, once opened, would send tremors across the monarchy, the media, and the public consciousness. And yes, William immediately ordered a full palace response, activating emergency communication channels and internal protocols. Sources familiar with palace operations point out that moments like these are rarely spontaneous. They are carefully engineered, meticulously planned over months or even years, with every possibility anticipated, every contingency rehearsed. But what made this moment truly unprecedented wasn't just the preparation, it was the certainty. The date, December 2025, will forever be remembered in royal history, not for jubilation, not for pomp or ceremony, but for the day Princess Anne finally drew a line, the day she refused to stay silent any longer. The location was deliberate, intentional, and deeply symbolic. Not Buckingham Palace, not Windsor Castle, Gatcombe Park, Anne's private estate, a sanctuary where she answers to no one, a place she controls absolutely. This wasn't a coordinated statement from the palace. This wasn't media-managed messaging. This was Anne herself, standing in her own authority, prepared to reveal what decades of loyalty and discretion had concealed. She had made a choice. The institution itself came first, even if it meant public exposure and personal risk. Her hands, known for their steadiness and grace, reportedly trembled slightly as she held her notes, a subtle betrayal of the weight she carried. Her voice, calm but tinged with a razor-sharp edge, cut through the room. I have remained silent because I believed in the institution. I believed in family loyalty. I believed that some matters should be handled privately. But this time, discretion had given way to necessity. The evidence she presented was staggering. Encrypted communications, phone records, and detailed documented meetings proving an ongoing coordination between Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew. And the timeline was chilling. This collaboration wasn't recent. According to Anne, it had been meticulously orchestrated since late 2019, spanning years, carefully calculated, and largely invisible to the outside world. Consider what this means. Meghan, who joined the royal family in 2018 and left in 2020 ostensibly seeking privacy, and Andrew, who had stepped back from official duties, were allegedly coordinating actions over several years, sharing insider information, monitoring developments, and quietly manipulating circumstances to their advantage. A partnership, forged in shadows, maintained through secrecy, and designed with a singular goal: leverage over the monarchy at its most sensitive points. All this while public appearances and interviews suggested they had nothing in common. Anne's revelation was more than a personal accusation. It was a direct challenge to the integrity of the crown itself. Those present described her voice as unwavering, carrying a barely contained fury, yet measured, controlled, and precise. She wasn't speaking for scandal or tabloid headlines. She was speaking to protect the institution she had served for decades. Every word was deliberate, every phrase calculated, and the room reportedly fell silent, absorbing the gravity of what was unfolding. Legal analysts quickly began parsing the implications. Titles, funding, representation, every element of royal protocol had suddenly become a matter of public interest. But Anne's disclosure wasn't just legalistic, it was profoundly strategic. She was exposing the mechanics of influence, the unseen systems by which certain actors within and outside the monarchy can manipulate events, reputations, and public perception. This was institutional transparency at its rawest, and it carried consequences that reverberated far beyond Gatcombe Park. The implications were immediate and unavoidable. For the monarchy, public trust, already strained by prior scandals, interviews, and documentaries, now faced an entirely new dimension of scrutiny. The question shifted from who did what to can the monarchy survive this reckoning? Every palace staffer, every advisor, and every family member had to confront the reality that the old ways of quiet containment, private mediation, and internal handling were no longer sufficient. Anne's statement, delivered without palace oversight, without the usual communications teams reviewing or sanitizing it, was effectively going nuclear. It was a calculated, personal intervention, the type only someone of her authority and courage could attempt. Sources emphasize that Anne didn't seek attention. She didn't crave headlines. She didn't want fame. She wanted accountability. She wanted the monarchy and the public to understand the truth behind carefully curated appearances. And what she revealed was staggering, a covert alliance stretching across years between individuals who were publicly unconnected, leveraging insider knowledge, and potentially compromising the reputation of the crown. The room reportedly felt a mix of disbelief, tension, and deep concern. Journalists present sensed the historical magnitude of what was happening, a quiet revolution in royal transparency, orchestrated by someone long known as the institution's most dependable guardian. As Anne spoke, legal teams and palace advisors scrambled to assess the fallout. Communication strategies had to be rewritten, statements revised, and damage control initiated, but only after the facts were laid bare. For the public, this was a once-in-a-generation revelation, a member of the royal family stepping forward, defying protocol, and demanding the truth be known. The monarchy itself, long reliant on silence and discretion, now faced exposure on an unprecedented scale. The long-term stakes are enormous. Public support for the monarchy could either solidify around demonstrated integrity or continue eroding under perceived deception. Calls for accountability, transparency, and structural reform will inevitably grow louder. Anne, by stepping forward, has forced a moment of reckoning, compelling both the family and the institution to confront uncomfortable truths. And here's the reality. This isn't the end of the story. Whether you sympathise with Meghan, with Andrew, or with neither, Princess Anne's revelation sets a precedent. The monarchy can no longer rely on silence. It can no longer hope that private issues remain private. Every decision, every alliance, every action, past, present, and future, will be under scrutiny. Anne has pulled back the curtain, and the monarchy may never operate in quite the same shadow again. So here's the takeaway, and why this matters to everyone watching. Accountability isn't optional, transparency isn't negotiable, and the choices made in the next weeks, months, and years will shape the crown for generations. What Anne did wasn't about drama, it wasn't about headlines, it was about duty, integrity, and ensuring the institution can endure in a world that no longer tolerates secrecy. If this story has shocked you, intrigued you, or made you think differently about the monarchy, take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Drop your thoughts below. What do you think should happen next? Can the monarchy recover from revelations like this? Or is it a turning point from which the institution will never return to the way it once was? Stay tuned, because this story is far from over, and the next chapters promise even more revelations and consequences. Princess Anne, the woman who never sought the spotlight, who spent decades in quiet service, has forced a moment of truth. And the monarchy will never be the same. This is history in the making, and we are all watching it unfold.